This is actually our genius slot. And John is going to be talking embracing deeper collaboration. And I won't give away what he's talking about, but there's some great stuff in here. And Jill, maybe it will also follow on nicely from the case clinic today. So, John, over to you.
Good, thanks, Nikki. I'm going to share my screen. Listen, we're a small group. Um, it- it- Everyone's sort of into this session very clearly. So as I go through this, please, hang on a minute, what's that? Dear, yes, okay. So as I go through this, please do chuck in questions, observations, whatever. When Nikki first talked to me about this, the invitation was come along, talk about collaboration, stimulate some thinking with this group. Let's have a conversation. I thought, yeah, I'm up for this. And it is a topic, a subject that's been with me for a long time in my life, and you'll see why when we get into it. So what I want to do is focus on, well, there are two bits that sort of come together in my head, but it'd be lovely to get your thoughts. One is the psychology of collaboration. Psychology is my background. So my early career was as a clinical psychologist and psychotherapist before I moved into the world of work and organizations. So it's a theme that fascinates me from that psychological point of view. It's a theme that for the last decade has fascinated me from a very practical point of view. So I'm hoping to cover both of those themes in this session. But as I say, do shout out, throw a hand up if you've got any thoughts or observations or questions. I wanted to start with what I see is a way of understanding the psychology of collaboration. In my mind, necessarily, it implies a degree of dependence. And with that dependence, a degree of vulnerability. And I think that's why it's around very often, because it's not an easy thing for human beings or some human beings to get into. One way of thinking about it that I've found helpful down the years is to see it as stages is too crude. If you consider these different states of psychological dependence, some of us will be in all five day after day. Some of us will get stuck in a particular state of dependence. We probably all know what it's like to be dependent growing up early on, and as we get older, where people slip into that state of mind that says, tell me what to do. Can that be part of collaboration? Not sure. It feels like it's a basis for an unequal relationship, but we can come back to that. And then we get that state of dependence that I call counter-dependence that we would typically see with adolescents. I don't need you. Dad, can you lend me a fiver? It's that state of being that, as I say, you typically see it in adolescents, but you'll see it in grown-ups too. They're dependent, but they don't want to be dependent, and there's often a passivity that can go with that. Then there's that state of independence where people will say, "Yeah, I want to do this by myself, please." It's sort of often a fierce need to feel self-sufficient and not rely on others. And it is interesting how often grown-ups can get stuck in that phase and therefore struggle to connect with, struggle to be part of, or to belong to groups or relationships. Then there's that stage that I sort of call codependence, and I have a hunch that this is what a lot of people in organizations, when they talk about collaboration, mean. It's sort of, you do your job, I'll do my job, we need each other, but it's built around a sort of a division of labor. And then, Jill, I had no idea that you used this phrase, better together, but it was lovely to see that come up up front with your song. But for me, this is this state of interdependence where, well, let me give you some examples. Let me build the picture. So if just two easy illustrations, what do you see on this slide? Are we seeing collaboration? Are we seeing something that I call complementarity? What are we actually seeing? The left-hand side is often me in the kitchen with my partner, where I'm peeling the potatoes and she's making a wonderful gravy or something. Is that collaboration? To a degree it is. We share a common purpose and a common goal. So what's going on in this right-hand side? This can feel different. This can feel different when two people come together, and it's not that transactional piece of let's be clear about our roles and get on with stuff. It's that interesting state of being that I think human beings typically seek. That for me is a build on collaboration that I call complementarity, that's transformational, where you get that sense of, okay, we're working on this together, but together it's better, that it's transformational in that sense of 1 + 1 = 3. That's how I understand the psychology of collaboration and complementarity. Let's move on to the what this looks like in actually in practice. And in order to understand that, I just want to introduce you very briefly to what's been the last 10 years of my working life, with a way of thinking about individual differences when it comes to having an impact on our world. Over the last 10 years, I've, with colleagues, developed a framework for thinking about how people seek to make an impact in their world, how people are different in that sense. And this representation captures it. And I'll talk you through it we just don't have the time to get into the detail of this, but what we see that's based upon a lot of research in the early days, a difference is to do with energy that comes from making sense of events. People we call strategists. I know Robin well, and he's one of these people who will bring energy to understanding the world, events in their world, and they need that sense of understanding to make sense of and to feel purposeful about what they do. There are folk like Nikki in our world whose energy comes from ideas, possibilities, being creative, being hopeful about possibilities. We see a lot of entrepreneurs who look like this. And interestingly enough, given our theme about belonging, they often feel different because they see the world in a different way, and it makes them feel different. And what's been lovely about this journey with the GC Index is that often those individuals, once they recognize that's where their energy is, start to belong in a different sort of way. Implementers and polishers are those folk who bring energy to getting stuff done. They need to feel potent. They need to feel that they're delivering something, as implementers typically do. And they can often do that in a very self-sufficient way because of that need to feel that they've done something without help. Polisher energy is about perfection, doing things to a level of quality that makes them feel proud of themselves. And as I described this, and the last one is, and I think we've probably got a few of you in this group, playmakers are those folk who bring energy to building cohesion in groups, the basis for collaboration. And often is a reflect of a concern about not belonging, fragmentation, being on the fringes of things. So there are these different ways of understanding people's energy that initially started off as a focus on the individual, but then very clearly became a way of thinking about collaboration and complementarity. Let me give you an inspiring story. What you've got on this slide, this is John and Natalie. John Franklin Hackett is he's what we call a GCologist. He's accredited to use the GC Index. Now, the story that these two have written up, which is inspiring, is of the early days of the pandemic, when Natalie was a deputy head in a primary school. John was a consultant, consulting primarily to local government and to recruitment. Their worlds collapsed in 2021, 22, collapsed. Their careers felt finished, and they really dipped. They really, John will talk about this very openly. They are now running a llama farm in Shropshire with something like, I don't know, 10,000 visitors a year or whatever it is. And John tells the story of how the ways in which they understood their differences allowed them to go beyond collaboration to this, what I call 1 + 1 = 3 transformational state of being. And again, I don't have time to go into the detail of this, but you'll get a flavor of it. This is John. In GC Index terms, he's the one with game-changing ideas. The guy comes up with some extraordinary thinking, which is the basis for his entrepreneurial mindset, if you like. But it gets him into trouble. It gets him into trouble when he cannot see a future, cannot see the possibilities. This is Natalie. Very strong energy for getting stuff done in a practical way. I'm sure you're beginning to read this already. You can see how they complement each other. And John would talk about how Natalie grounds him in practical realities when he's worrying about what the world is going to bring. She'll take him off for a walk or remind him that the sheds need clearing out or something in a very grounding, very containing way. And when Natalie's feeling gloomy that she can't see where the next few quid is coming from, that's when John kicks in with this game changer energy that's hopeful and positive and full of possibilities. I've sort of galloped through that. I wanted to just stop, and if there's any conversation, we can have it. But so when Nikki said, "Come and talk about this," I thought, "Yeah, let's have this conversation," because it's a nice way to see the subtleties in collaboration. From, is it division of labour? Is there the potential to be complementary? And how can we understand that? So, Andrew, I'm going to stop there and pick up a conversation if people want to or have questions.